Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life, and this is the video that I wanted to make about AT&T. So AT&T is, in many analysts, many investors, in their view, is still kind of the oddball in the wireless industry. And while I tend to agree with that, I gotta say I think that's about to change. And I think if my predictions are correct, I think this is about to change in a drastic manner. Why do I say that? Because throughout LTE, AT&T was sitting on very impressive spectral assets. They bought them. They spent very heavy on that investment. And what they failed to do in the early 2010s and on, they really failed to deploy that spectrum. And Randall Stevenson, in large part, was the issue because he wanted to save money to buy all the media assets. So that was AT&T's main issue was management. That kind of corrected itself with the FirstNet contract, and then they started deploying 50% more spectral assets across the network. And now we have the network that we're seeing today, performing with a insane LTE network with a certain speeds up to 500-600 megabits a second. Now, how does AT&T look going into 5G? For many analysts, I've seen articles that say AT&T is automatically in third place. And if you look at Spectrum only, I could see where they're coming from. There was recently an update to the total spectral assets, and CBRS and all the high band was included, the C band, and then of course millimeter wave as well, and all the carriers' LTE assets. And in a lot of markets, and I mean a lot of markets, AT&T is looking very skinny compared to the competition. And they spent a good amount of money during C-band. Don't get me wrong. They spent almost $30 billion, but they just didn't get enough of the spectrum, I think, to put them on par with the competition in terms of pure spectral assets. Verizon bought CBRS. They got C-band galore. They got 160 megahertz of C-band on average. They got an additional 30 to 40 megahertz of CBRS in many markets. They're at 200 total. And in some areas, in rural areas where they already got 200 megahertz of C-band, they're even over 200. Same with T-Mobile. In some areas, they have 226 megahertz of high band now, including the C-band, and then over 100 megahertz of their mid-band PCS, AWS, and then Sprint's PCS spectrum. So they're pushing in Chicago, for example, low band, mid-band, and high band, they're pushing 412 megahertz. So in some cases, in some markets, T-Mobile even has just an insane advantage on spectrum. But nonetheless, regardless, AT&T is the lowest in most markets from what I calculated. Even the millimeter wave in a lot of markets, T-Mobile has more of it. 500 megahertz or so of that is in the 47 gigahertz for T-Mobile. Is that necessarily going to be a big thing on their network? Likely not. They're also not emphasizing small cells, so that will be very strategic. It'll be specifically placed in areas of high traffic, big venues, etc. Now, how does AT&T offset everybody having more spectrum? They kind of hinted this in a recent interview with John Stenke. He specifically mentioned T-Mobile and their spectrum and capacity advantage. He said we can offset that by infrastructure. So that lets me know that internally, I think there is a plan on the RAN team side, the network side, that they are planning to become the densest network in the United States during the 5G era. Could they potentially buy more spectrum? Sure. They could buy more spectrum. They could get some of that 3.5 coming up in the auction 110. That'll give them another 40 megahertz split into 10 megahertz pieces. Even that would still, in a lot of markets, put them behind. It'll close the gap, but they'll still be behind on spectrum. In El Paso, for example, they would still be significantly behind the T-Mobile and the Verizons of the world. Now, the C-RAN implementation of what AT&T is doing is massive. It's absolutely massive. They're not playing around this time around. The media spinoff, that should have let you know, okay, AT&T is about to get serious, because they got no other businesses to fall back on. They have to make wireless work now. Fiber is going to play a factor, but that's going to take them some time to really scale that to the households they want to get to. Fixed wireless, you can do it a lot faster, and you're going to suck up some of that opportunity for even the fiber opportunity for AT&T. If there's a customer home that's on UVerse or even DSL, they may switch to T-Mobile, and they may not switch back to AT&T even if that customer gets fiber, just depending on the situation. But I really think, look forward to AT&T becoming the densest network in the United States. We already know the coverage footprint is large. Is it the largest? That's debatable, but I think eventually they will get there with FirstNet. They kind of have no choice. They got to really deploy the tower assets, even if they find no necessary resources or return on investment in some of these areas. If there could potentially be an emergency in that area, a tower has to be deployed. And like I told you guys, by next year, April, they want to be 100% native network. They don't want to rely on roaming anymore. So again, AT&T, very aggressive, very straightforward, you could say. They are hinting towards having the densest network in the United States throughout the 5G era. They didn't really specifically say that, but stating they could offset the capacity advantage with infrastructure, kind of let you know they're getting ready to densify the network. And then, they got to reallocate the resources from the LTE spectrum over to 5G a lot quicker than its competition, I would say. I think they DSS a lot more bands. And I think it'll make for a great performing network if you're used to their 5GE or LTE. It's great. It's a great network. I'm seeing people post 400, 500, 600 megabits a second. The C-RAN are playing a big factor. So again, when they go to 24 billion on capex, annual capex, I think they do so for an extended amount of years, because they have a lot of catching up to do on densification. They want to get that C-band out there. And they still have to expand coverage, because of FirstNet. So I think they do that for an extended amount of years. I think they spend maybe 3 to 4 billion on fiber on an annual basis. So you could see almost $20 billion going back into the wireless network on an annual basis. Now, if that doesn't drastically change the network, then I don't know what will. So let me know what you think about this in the comment section down below. Look forward to hearing you guys' input and comments. So I look forward to reading those. If you have been on the channel or you're new to the channel and you have not yet liked, shared, subscribed, make sure you do so. Hit that notification bell so you are notified when I do upload content. Make sure to follow my social media outlets for more updates and interactions. Thanks again for watching. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.